as we enter race 2 from Algarve, Portimao of the Sam Pearce Clio E Series 2021. And it's race 2, which is a mixed grid. In P1, our pole position sitter after a podium finish and great performance in race 1 is Alex Neville. David the North has lucked into P2. Kiwi Russ, having disconnected in the first race and losing some championship points, having been in a strong position in P3. Scott Thompson of Pro-Am in P4. Rob the Bear in P5. Ed after his pole to flag win in P6. Sam in P7. Robert Lewis in P8. Graham in P9 and Paul in P10. So unluck at the draw this time for both Rob and Graham. Our championship 1 and 2 down in P8 and P9 in amongst a mixture of cars. Let's see how we go. The lights are on and they're away. Not a great start from Alex, and Kiwi Russ dips around the outside there, so good start from Russ as they bunch up in the middle. So that's Rob the Bear in the middle there. So it's Russ who gets the whole shot from Alex. A little bit of contact there, and he comes back on and hits our championship P2 man and loses a bit of control. Rob the Bear, what's going to happen here? Manages to get it out, and it's Kiwi Russ who's got the whole shot out in front. So Russ followed by Dave. Yeah, he's got a 1.2 second lead, Russ, so a great start him from there. Scott in P3, Alex in P4 and Rob in P5, who's got Rob the Bear for company. So up into the inside, Rob the Bear as they all go there. A little bit of contact between Ed and Rob, not having much luck there, getting hit again. So 4 cars all coming into that slow pit stop area, the bus stop of the left-hand hairpin on this first lap, seriously impacting on people's races. So out in P5, Rob the Bear, a little bit of fresh air in front of him, a couple of seconds out to David the North. Now race 1 winner Ed, followed by Graham, who's back in his livery. So P1 and P2 in the first race, and now battling it out very close nose to bumper for P6 and P7 in this race. No one really getting away too far, but Kiwi Russ has got a 1.2 lead off the front. Alex has maintained that position in P3, and Dave and the North in P4. Rob the Bear in P5 as they all bunch up together. So Alex, Dave and Rob Burnham, who you can see in your picture here, with Scott in P2. So really close between P2, 3, 4 and 5 that you see on your screen. Rob just getting a little bit loose there and losing a bit of time, but actually coming on to that start-finish straight very closely. And Graham is on the back of Ed, so unable to get past him in the first race. Is he going to manage to make a move? So out front it is Scott, followed by Alex, followed by Dave, followed by Rob the Bear. So Rob up into P4, Graham in P6 and Ed in P5. So something's happened to Russ that's put him right the way back down through the field. Very close out front now, so Scott in P1, Alex in P2, Dave's hanging on in P3 and Rob the Bear up in that top 5 again in P4 with Ed behind him, who's absolutely got Graham behind him for company. So is Graham going to try and make the move stick as we come into it? He's going to go wide, see if he can drive around the outside, carries a lot more speed, but has Ed going to get the drive out the corner? It looks like Graham may have made that move work, so the long way round, and he has. A great piece of driving. But always up on 2 wheels. Is that going to give Ed a chance to cut? And he's lost it. He sent it a bit sideways through there, and that's given Ed the chance to nip back up the inside. So Ed retakes that P5 position. And out front, Alex is now right on the back bumper of Scott in the blue car. So Alex in the white, yellow and black car, Scott in the blue car. So Scott leading Alex with a little bit of a gap back to Dave of the North, and Rob the Bear still hanging on in there in P4. Broadly similar place between those two guys, but the battle out the front is less than half a second. So Alex, after a podium position in race 1, back into good form, nice and tidy there. Scott running a little bit wider, Alex making up a little bit of time as they come round to finish lap 2. They start lap 3, the back of Alex's car looking a little bit looser than Scott's there, just a difference in driving. So Scott's one wide, Alex a bit tidier on the exit. And Rob the Bear has now got Ed for company in P5, challenging for that P4 position. So Alex has a little look at Scott. Not close enough to do it. Dave hanging on in P3. Is Ed going to get past Rob Burnham in P4? No, he's sitting a little bit off the back of the bumper. So it's Alex all over the back of Scott now. Keeping the pressure up, not letting Scott get away with anything. As we come down to the hairpin, Alex late on the brakes, seesawing away, he's on controller rather than the wheel. So the tap stair technique. And Dave and Rob are going side by side as well. So Rob the Bear with Ed, and he's managed to have contact there. It's enabled Ed to skip past up into P3. Is he be able to get round the outside and use the cutback on Dave as he gets a run onto the corner? We'll see as they come down here. Dave on his own, and yes, Rob has managed to make that move stick up into P4. Dave in P5 and Sam Pearce in P6 is now on the back as well. So Alex as out front is battling hard with Scott. Nice in between the two positions. A little bit of contact there. He's managed to find his lights for race 2, which is always helpful. Scott a little bit looser in, and then in the second half of the corner, Alex being a bit loose as well. So as they come round again, and Scott's gone really wide there. That's an unusual line to be taken through there. Must have gone in pretty hot. Not sure if he's going to get a penalty of some description for that, for running wide, but Alex is right in the slipstream. Although he pulls out the slipstream and immediately heads for the middle of the track, so he's made his intentions very clear. I'm going to outrun you down into T1 and hope I can outbrake you. Oh, so Scott's just blended out there, I think, because he did run wide to avoid a penalty, which has enabled Alex to nip up and take a 1 second lead. So great driving there. And Graham and Dave are battling it out further down the field, and Graham on the back of Sam Pearce now as well, so lots going on in front of him, and he's managed to get past Sam and up into P5, and a little bit of contact there between the pair of them. Didn't send anyone off. Dave saw it's a bit of an opportunity, sends it up the inside, a bit of side contact then as that impacted on Graham as they come down 4 cars all together. So it's Dave in the white car, Sam in the silver and red car, Graham in the monster car, and Paul with the silver and yellow car, teammates to Sam Pearce there. They all come round this corner. Dave running wide, Sam nipping up the inside. Is that going to give Graham a chance to have a run up the inside as well? And Dave is staying very wide there, and Paul nips up the inside as well. So Sam moves up into P5, Graham P6, Paul P7, Dave drops down to P8. And Rob Lewis, having had some issues out of one of the corners, is down in P9. So Graham all over the back of Sam. Fast technical piece this, so heavy braking zone which unsettles the car. And these two guys seem to have got that corner nailed pretty well. Graham keeping it nice and tidy. Sam got a more sweeping line, but Graham seems to have got the run on him there. Is he going to make a move up into this slow left-hander, heavy braking zone? Locking up a little bit there from Sam, which has pushed him a bit wider than Graham. Graham's up on the inside. Sam takes the line back, swoops across the front of the car, manages to pull a couple of car lengths, and it will be to see whether or not Graham can actually get down this start-finish straight. So Sam just put in a couple of car lengths, but it will be interesting to see whether or not Graham can get the slipstream and come down into this fast T1. So he is, he pulls out. Is he going to manage to make the move work? On the inside, braking later, but he hasn't got the optimal line. Is that going to allow Sam to cut back again on the inside? Yeah, it is. Sam kind of saw that coming and moves back into P5. So Graham back down into P6, and he's got to do all that work again. So good driving there from Sam. Saw that move coming. Just gave him the opportunity. Graham had to try it, but he was compromised on his line and his speed, and that meant that he didn't really have the opportunity to carry the momentum through the exit. And Sam nipped back up on the inside again. And out front it's still pretty close between Scott and Alex, so Alex a little bit more wayward there. Scott braking, turning in very nicely, closing right up in the back of Alex, but Alex will be on the power just that car or 2 lengths earlier and extending that lead just up to 0.4 seconds once again. Very close between Sam and Graham, so Graham has got past, so something must have happened there. And that's enabled Paul to get right onto the back of Sam as well. And who's joining in up the front? It's Ed, just jumping onto the back of these two and making it a 3-way battle for the lead. So Ed, with the confidence of the race 1 win behind him, just chasing up onto the back of Alex, Scott and Ed forming the front 3, and Rob the Bear still doing a good job hanging on to that P4 position with Graham behind him. So Graham moving up into P5, and with Rob Lewis down in P10, it's looking like he's going to take some more points out of Rob in this race as well. And Ed's going to be coming back into it with the way that he's been driving, with the winning race 1 and a potential podium as we sit here at the moment after 6 laps. So 3 or 4 more laps to go for this 20-minute race. Graham closing up on the back of Rob the Bear. So the battle for 4th and 5th, and he just moves up the inside, Graham there. Rob doesn't quite get it right, and he does. He takes that position and moves up into P4. So Russ, unfortunately, with a drive-through we established, having glitched out in the first race, he got a drive-through penalty for a jump start on the opening of this race, so he is down in P9, and that will impact on his P3 championship position. We'll get to see the positions at the end of the race, but for now it's Sam who is chasing Rob the Bear, and Rob the Bear is just hanging on to the back of Graham there. But as we move back to the front, 0.6 seconds covering P1, P2 and P3. So out front it's Alex with Scott in P2, and Ed's making a move on Scott. Scott doing a little bit wide there. Ed's taking the sweeping line. Is that going to enable him to get a bit of a run into this left-hander? He has a look, thinks better of it, brakes a bit harder, tucks it in nicely, and these 3 cars, as close as you can see them, less than half a second covering them. So Alex out in front, Scott in P2 with a much better drive than he had in race 1, and Ed in P3. With that race win behind him, will Ed be throwing caution to the wind and fancy having a go of sending one up on Scott, and maybe then getting onto the back of Alex as they come down? And probably out of the 3 people, Ed's got the slipstream, the best position, the double toe, but Scott's tucked in very closely to Alex as well. So Alex moves defensive to the inside, which he's perfectly entitled to do. Does that mean that Ed's turned his lights off, so he's going into stealth mode? Is Scott going to be able to make this move stick around the outside? We know that being around the outside is not a bad place to be. Alex just manages to hang on to that P1 rather, but they do get very, very close indeed. So Scott right on the back bumper there, and Ed in turn on the back bumper there with his lights off. Maybe he's going to pop those on at the end and say, "Ha, here I am." You never know. Alex just getting a car length there as they come into the braking zone. The right thing to do, step to the inside. Scott, he's really had to brake heavy there, and does that mean that Scott's got a bit of drive out? And it does look like Alex is a little bit bogged down on the exit, and that's enabled Ed to come up in from P3. So, yep, great piece of driving there. 1 car going either side, and excellent work there from Scott going around the outside into P1, and Ed cutting up the inside into P2. So out of that slow chicane, for whatever reason, Alex seemed to bog down, and it's dropped him back from 1st to 3rd. Scott out front. Ed's found the light switch. Now that he's got back up into P2, maybe he thinks, I don't want someone to hit me in behind, so I do want to show my lights. Late braking there from Ed, but doesn't necessarily mean he's going to exit the corner better. And Scott just pulls a couple of car lengths there, so status quo as it was. And Alex has a little look up the inside of Ed, gets up on the curb, doesn't quite manage to make the move stick, backs out of it. Ed's a bit fortunate there not to get collected, but that's fine. Ed's very loose rear end there. It's enabled Scott to pull away and Alex get back up onto his back bumper. So Alex is now in a good position with a potential of a double toe from these two cars. So Scott just breaking a bit off there, half a second in front, and Alex again, so just spreading out. 1 second still covering our top three, but they are half a second apart rather than being nose to tail. And will that be different by the time we get down this straight? Alex in a great position to get the double slipstream. Ed just tucking in behind Scott, and Scott out in the fresh air, punching a hole for the two behind him. But they haven't managed to make much ground up through the last gate, and that is a great piece of driving by Ed to get right up onto the back bumper there. Alex has cut the corner a little bit there. I'm not sure whether or not he's going to switch his lights off. I think he's letting him back through because he overtook on the grass, and that would have meant having to concede the place anyway. So rather than take the penalty and have to give the place back, Alex realised that although he didn't manage to quite make that move stick, and probably the two cars in front of him to slow down, he went off the circuit but needed to concede the place and gone back in, so we're back as we were. So Scott in the blue car, Ed in the white and purple car, and Alex in the white, yellow and black car. Nose to tail once again, and just 1.2 seconds covering these three, with Ed right on the back of Scott and Alex having just dropped off, having lost a bit of momentum. And who's in the background lurking? Yet again, it's the beast, it's Graham Crowhurst. Ed right on the back of Scott now. Not letting him get away, keeping that pressure up. 0.2 seconds. 2 laps more maybe for this 20-minute race. Ed seeing whether or not he can pressure Scott, and Scott's gone a little bit wide. And Ed has skipped up the inside and taken the race lead. So great piece of driving there from Ed. Pushing Scott down into P2, and Alex still hanging on in there at P3. And the beast, watching what's going up in head, and just gradually 4 seconds off the lead at the moment. Is he going to get back into this race? And I think it's a bit too much to ask really over 2 laps, but we've seen him do it before as Ed stays out front, and now he is definitely going to be the hunted one with these two guys behind him absolutely on it and right in that slipstream again. So Alex looking like he got a really good run there. Scott not tucking in behind Ed to start with, but now he is as we come down the start finish straight. 3 cars bunching right up. Scott getting a great drive out and using the toe off the back of Ed. Is he going to make a move into turn 1? He looks like he's in front, but he is going to slow it down a bit from there. He's gone a bit wide, and that's enabled Ed to get better run and better momentum up in the inside into this braking zone. Is that going to allow Alex to get through as well? Very clean from all 3 drivers, and Ed hanging on in there, but Alex is now keeping Scott company, and Scott runs him out wide, but not entirely wide, just at the last minute there, gives him enough, but he has got the inside. So Ed out front, giving himself half a second lead, and these two side by side into this left-hand hairpin. Alex not bogging down this time, and they're going to come out a bit side by side. So who's got the better traction? It looks like Alex might have nipped back into P2, and he has. So where he bogged down before, he's now taken a better line and better speed. Has moved back into P2. So Alex back up into P2 with Scott in P3. Scott's not giving up on the back of Alex either, is he? So Ed out front, just 0.2 seconds from Alex. Scott running a little bit wide, just getting a bit ragged. Alex being a bit tidier. And that is the challenge in this game. You know, you really do want to make up some time, but because the quality of the driving is so high, that in order to really take some time out, you try and push harder, and actually you make a mistake, and that enables you to drop off. So Scott's just found there, so he has dropped off tiny bit, and right onto Ed's the back bumper is Alex, and after a couple of weeks of indifferent form, he's looking back to his best, and he tucks into the slipstream, and he will definitely not be thinking of taking P2. He will want the race win. And Graham, if these 3 in front of him have any contacts, he's managed to get right back up, but Alex is going to have a little look at Ed. Brakes on the inside, a little bit of contact between the pair of them, gets it through nicely. Ed gets a better drive out. Scott would have had probably the purest of drives there. Nicely done on the inside, bit of contact between the 3 of them. All 3 cars carrying on as they were, so a little bit of rubbing, no sort of major contact there, and entirely to be expected at this time in the race. Graham's brought that down to 2 seconds now, so I'm not sure whether or not he's going to get onto the back of this, because this is probably the last lap. There's Alex out front, keeps it neat and tidy, gets on the gate, he runs wide. Is that going to give him a penalty of any description, or is he going to get away with that? It's enabled Ed to move right back up onto his back bumper. He's keeping his foot in, Alex, so it doesn't look like he's been given a penalty on his screen. Braking to the right hander, and Ed does seem to have a little bit more pace, and Scott there, because he's not having the interference of not having to take traditional lines or braking later or earlier, he's actually carrying more speed in, but not managed to convert that into moving back up in front. And this is going to be really close now, so over the brow, probably for the last time, into this double right hander where the car gets loose, and Scott has managed to put a move there on Ed and turn Ed's lights off in the process. So Scott with a strong move up into P2. Alex staying out front, a little bit of contact between the pair of them, just 2 more corners left and then the run down to the start finish straight. Is it going to be as simple as who's going to get a drive out of this corner? Looks like Alex is neat and tidy. Scott's a little bit looser, but it'll all be about who's got the slingshot down, and Graham's come onto the back of this, and I just think he's going to run out of time. This is likely to be the last lap of the race. So out front, Alex Neville coming along. Is he going to manage to take his first victory of the season? He flashes his lights as he comes across the line. Rob Lewis just pulling over some, and he does, so congratulations to Alex, P1. Scott in P2, Ed in P3, Graham with a great drive up into P4, Sam Pearce crosses the line P5, Paul up into P6, and following behind him, Rob the Bear in P7, David the North not managing to get across the line in P8, Kiwi Russ crossing the line in P9 after a drive-through at the start. And rounding out our top 10, unfortunately, Rob Lewis didn't have much luck this week. So, as we finish our trip out to America at Watkins Glen and Portugal for the Algarve, it's Graham the Beast who leads our championship with 182 points. Ed, after a great race win and podium finish this week, moves up the table into P2 with 160 and right in the championship contention. Rob Lewis, who was our series leader a couple of weeks ago and 1 point behind coming into this race, is now down into P3 but still massively in the race with 158. Sam cements his position in P4 with 140. Scott with some good points this weekend up into P5 with 135. Kiwi Russ dropping down after losing all of his points in the first race and getting a drive-through, which pushed him right to the back of the field in race 2, down to P6 from P3 in 127 points. Alex with some good strong points this week up to 116, probably a bit too far for the championship, but right back in the mid-table race. Matt, without racing for 3 weeks, still hanging on in there in P8 with 80 points after a great start to the season. Paul in P9 with 40, and Dave rounds out our top 10 with 38. So all to play between Paul and Dave down at the bottom end. But out front, going into the next round at Snetterton, where we know anything can happen with the weather, it probably will rain, but you just don't know, is Graham the Beast on 182 points with Ed behind him 160 and Robert Lewis on 158 with everything to play for.